On Monday, President Trump basically asserted the right to pardon himself for any crime. Well, that's interesting, considering how he maintains that he hadn't done any crimes. We'll get a load of this tweet. He says, quote, as has been stated by numerous legal scholars, like a couple on Fox News, I have the absolute right to pardon myself. But why would I do that when I have done nothing wrong? In the meantime, the never-ending witch hunt led by 13 very angry Democrats, angry and conflicted Democrats, and others continues into the midterms. That's funny how you assert the power to pardon yourself, but then say, well, I don't need to pardon myself, but I could if I had to. I mean, if I could, I could totally pardon myself if I needed to, but I don't really need to. But I'm telling you that I could do it even though I don't need to, just in case I need to. What? Okay. So, look, there's the question, right? So, can he pardon himself? Well, there's a few legal scholars that have weighed in. And actually, they say, no, actually not. Now, on August 5th of 1974, Mary Lawton, the acting assistant attorney general, actually looked at that question of whether the president can pardon himself. Now, of course, that happened during the term of Richard Nixon, the presidency of Richard Nixon. So Nixon, of course, was getting himself into a lot of trouble, and if anybody could have used a pardon at that point, it was Nixon. Now, she wrote, under the fundamental rule that no one may be a judge in his own case, the president cannot pardon himself. Well, it's fairly clear, right? Again, if you have the power to pardon yourself after doing a criminal act, well then, that would make you a despot. That would make you an authoritarian, and that would basically end rule of law. No. I don't believe in rule of law. I am an authoritarian. I will do whatever I want, and then I will pardon myself of any crime. This is what happens in a banana republic. This is what happens when you actually don't have democracy. So it is kind of funny to see Donald Trump go out and claim he has that power, because he's basically saying, I don't believe in democracy. I don't believe in rule of law. I'll just pardon myself. So, now, Lawton's analysis was analyzed last year by a trio of legal scholars for the Washington Post. Now, that included the White House Counsels for President Obama and Bush. They wrote, the Justice Department was right that guidance could be found in the enduring principles that no one can be both the judge and the defendant in the same matter, and that no one is above the law. Well, President Trump comes out with this and says, no, I am above the law. Now, what are the implications of that? Well, we'll have to see. But the Constitution, well, let's go to that. If you're a constitutional conservative, you believe in the Constitution, if you're like, founding fathers, founding principles, well, then this part will interest you greatly. The Constitution specifically bars the president from using the pardon power to prevent his own impeachment and removal. It also adds that any official removed through impeachment remains fully subject to criminal prosecution. That provision, of course, makes a lot of sense. Wouldn't make sense if you could pardon yourself. So, there you go. Now, there are a couple experts out there, and this is where you get they're mixed headlines. Can the president pardon himself? It's a little bit mixed. Well, here's why. One person, law professor Jonathan Turley, writing Monday in USA Today, says, yes, the president does have the power to pardon himself. However, he calls the idea of the self-pardon, quote, reprehensible and ignoble. And then, of course, another person you had talking about self-pardons was Trump's lawyer, Rudy Giuliani. Now, Giuliani said that Trump probably had the power to pardon himself, but then added later that such an act would likely lead to his, quote, immediate impeachment. And to be honest, look, I think that this might be the only situation where you possibly might see impeachment. Not Russia, not the financial money laundering crimes or anything like that, but actually this kind of abuse of power. Pardoning themselves. And this is something that not even Republican politicians could hide from. Potentially. And look, I think this situation is actually incredibly unlikely. Why? Well, look, I said that this is potential. Like you could have the Republican Party potentially turn on Donald Trump if he tries to pardon himself. But the other possibility is that the Republican politicians won't care. And let me tell you why. As long as their base loves Donald Trump, and as long as it affects their elections, their chances in an election, then these politicians won't move. They just won't. And look, there's a lot of right-wingers that are authoritarians. There are also a lot of centrists that are authoritarians as well. So, but they are mostly anti-Trump. So, look, there is that consideration as well. But look, if Donald Trump slips in the approval ratings among Republican voters, among his base, well then, here comes Pence. They'll drop him like a hot potato. But it's all contingent, and this is how sad it's gotten. It seems to all be contingent on politics, on whether or not these Republican politicians will get elected. And right now, they have hitched their careers to Donald Trump. And it is very likely that they will end up going down with him. So, in that situation, we get Pence, then what have we accomplished? Well, nothing. And so again, even if Trump were removed, and that would be extraordinary. And of course, if he tried to pardon himself, then it would kick off a constitutional crisis of what we have not seen. Well, again, what have we accomplished? Not much. So here's what I think we need to do. We need to beat Trump with policy. We actually need to beat Trump in an election. Look, if the Democrats were serious about real resistance, they would actually push for policies that are incredibly popular. Instead, what have they done? They have joined him in deregulating the banks. They don't fight him on immigration. Again, we had chances of where Democrats could actually use their leverage in order to force a vote on DACA. What did they do? Oh no, Mitch McConnell promised me a vote. Did that happen? Hell no, it didn't happen. You think Mitch McConnell gave a shit at all about whether the Democrats got a vote? No, he laughed all the way back into a shell. I mean, you're gonna believe Mitch McConnell? And look, every progressive out there was saying, don't deal with McConnell. Don't deal with McConnell. Don't believe him. He is lying to you. He is not going to give you a vote. And of course, the Democrats fold every time. But that's their point. The Democrats are basically paid to lose. They're the Washington Generals. They have no purpose other than to say, what could we do? What could we do? The Republicans, we had to let them win. We had no choice. So look, they don't fight him. And the Democratic voters, unfortunately, a lot of them pin their hopes on just Mueller and Stormy Daniels. But that is not a strategy. That is not a strategy at all. And when the Democrats come out and say, well, no, we're against corruption. Look at all the corruption in the Trump administration. Holy crap, it is the most corrupt administration we've ever seen. Well, how can you rail against corruption when you take money from the same people? When you take money from giant corporations and super PACs and shady dark money groups. When even Democrats are taking Koch money. Yeah, there's that story. You can't claim to be against corruption. See, this is why a lot of these different factors and the fact that the resistance, which started out really strong, and this blue wave that started out really, really strong is now a trickle, is because the Democrats themselves did not lend policy to it. They decided, we're not going to go and we're not going to fight. We are not going to go after and really try to push for these progressive policies. And that's their mistake. This is why Trump could very well win in 2020. And why the Democrats are so desperate for Mueller. But I don't think Mueller will be able to eliminate a sitting president. And besides, Donald Trump has no shame. Even if they find collusion, he'll be like, so what? Pardon myself. I am a king now. I'm the Emperor Trump. You can't get rid of me. You're fired, Mueller. Gone. So, look, and if that happens, Republicans in Congress, as long as the polls stay up for him, and you know that his supporters will cheer him on as he goes into full authoritarian mode, he'll stay in office, and the Republicans will not impeach him because they love authoritarians, they hate democracy, and they hate the rule of law. So, no matter what happens, we're in for a rough ride. But if progressives actually push on policy, then it's pretty much our only chance of eliminating Trump. So if you want to win in 2020, run on Medicare for all, run on free college, run on the living wage, run on those policies that are actually popular. Because if we rely on Mueller to save us, then we're already doomed. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent progressive media, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/TYTNation.